We are on the bottom of Yadalit Amid Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. We're moving on to a slightly different topic. Amar Rabba Bavachanam Rabbi Yochanan. Kol loisase shekadmu aseh loiken alav. We know the rule that a lav shenitek le'aseh. If you have a lav, the classic example of this is that's run the Gemara is noiser. If you leave over from a carbon, you have to burn it. The Torah says there's a lav, you can't leave it over, and if you do leave it over, you should burn it. That's a lav hanitek le'aseh. And when there's a lav hanitek le'aseh, if you do the aseh, you're not going to be mechayev for the lois aseh. You're not going to get Makkos for the lois aseh. Another example that often comes up is Geneva. If someone's a ganef, the Torah says he has to return it. So he would get Makkos for the lois aseh of stealing, but the lav shenitek le'aseh, the essay, the Torah says you have to return it, will take away that you won't get the Makkos. But the Rabbi Yochanan says a added variation of this. If you have a lav shekodmu aseh, which the way Rashi explains it is, if there's an action that you could do prior to the lav. Let's see the Rashi, where he'll give an example. It's like Rashi, 4 lines from the bottom. That like tisrafu. Even though we generally will say a lav shenitek le'aseh is ein like a lav, but kosav lidin essay achalois to say lemish ein like a lav shenotek hakosav essay lias anshe shel lav. When the Torah makes an essay, that becomes the punishment or the retribution for the lav. The tikunai, and it's masakin, it fixes it. Loima lois aseh kach ve'masisa aseh zais. Don't do this, but if you do this, do that. That's only if what the Torah says, the positive affirmation that you should do this thing to make up for the lav, and that comes after lav. But an essay that comes before the lav, even if something that's able to be done before the lav, if you do it after the lav, you're not going to become patur min hamalkus. Because the Gemara is going to give what the example is. But that's the rule of Rabbi Yochanan. It's not like a lav hanitek le'aseh. It's a lav shekodmu aseh, and you do get malkus. Amrulai, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, Amarta, did you really say such a thing? That even a lav that has an assay with it, if the essay comes before the lav, then you're going to get malkus? Amrulai, he said, no, I was chayzer on that. He says, no, I mean not that I didn't say it, but I retract it. And the truth is, you're not going to get malkus. It's going to be like every lav shenitek le'aseh. Amar Rabba ha'elokim amro uksivu tnina. Rabba says you don't retract it. What you originally said, the original rule that you said that a malkus, that a lav that has an essay that's before it gets malkus. You actually said it, and you should stick with it. Uksivu tnina, and we learn it out from a pasuk, and together with our Mishnah. Usually, when we say ksivu tnina, it means that we have a raya both from the pasuk and a raya from the Mishnah. But in this case, what it means is, by looking at the pasuk and our Mishnah, we can see that it's true that you get malkus on the lav shekodmu aseh. Ksiva, what's the pasuk? V'yisholchu min hamachla. Someone who becomes tamei, he gets sent out of the machla, meaning someone who gets sent out of the Beis Hamikdash. If someone is in the Beis Hamikdash and become tamei, the Torah says he has to leave the Beis Hamikdash. And also says lo yatamu es machaneim. If someone is outside of the Beis Hamikdash, he's not allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash. So this is a lav shekodmu aseh, right? Because the Torah says that both if you become tamei while you're in the Beis Hamikdash, you have to go out. That's before the lav, which says that you're not allowed to come into the Beis Hamikdash tamei. And so, but from the pasuk, we don't know whether you get malkus on that or not. But the Gemara says tzina hacha tnina. But we learned in our Mishnah about the mikdash tamei that someone who comes into the mikdash is tamei, whose tamei is going to get malkus. So you see, even though this lav of going into the Migdash while Tameh, there's an earlier essay. There's an essay that if he's Tameh when he was in the Beis HaMikdash, he has to go out. Even so, if he were to leave the Beis HaMikdash and then come back, he would still get Malkus. Our Mishnah is not Mechalik. Our Mishnah says that someone who goes into the Mikdash while he's Tameh, he could still leave the Beis HaMikdash afterwards. But even so, our Mishnah says you get Malkus. So this is a raya to what Rabbi Yochanan had originally said before he retracted, that a lav shekadmu aseh is like. Okay, I'm just going to reiterate because we're going to go back and forth on this a couple of times on this summit. Rabbi Yochanan's original contention was, even though a lav shenitik essay, a lav that has an essay that comes afterwards, like we often talk about noiser, talk about gneva, that the essay makes that you're not, when you're mekayim the essay, you're not chayiv on the lav. Rabbi Yochanan said if the essay is available, if the assay is available before the lav, and he doesn't give an example, but we're going to give an example now. That's not, on that you will be chayiv. It's not like it's not a lav shenitik essay. It's not included in that iser. It's not considered. I'm sorry, in that heter.
I'm sorry. This is Rabbi Yochanan saying chayiv on what? The Malkus we're talking about?
Malkus for a lav shekadmu essay. If it's not just that you do the essay afterwards, but also you can do the essay. You could have done the essay before the lav was.
So we're saying now either which way you'd get Malkus.
What do you mean either which way?
I'm saying either the lav is either before the essay or after the essay.
The essay is before the lav.
Excuse me.
The lav shenitik essay, it doesn't get Malkus, right? That's an exception to the rule. But this is an exception to the exception. Although a stam lav gets Malkus, a lav shenitik essay doesn't get Malkus. Rabbi Yochanan is saying there's an exception to that exception. Even though a lav shenitik essay doesn't get Malkus, a lav shenitik essay means that after you did the lav, you can do an essay to fix the lav. But if the essay was available before you were over on the lav, then it's going to be chayiv. It's going to be like a regular lav.
So where are we up to on the Amid?
So we're on Tezvavam and Aleph. So we said, so Rabbah disagreed with Rabbi Yochanan. I'm sorry. So we skipped. Rabbi Yochanan had said that he retracted his view. He took it. He doesn't really hold to this, what we just said, b'shem. But Rabbah says you shouldn't have retracted, you should have stuck to it. So Rabbah essentially is giving a raya, or where do we see that this is true, that a lav shekadmu aseh is like an lav, because we said, what the Torah says, that someone who becomes tameh while he's in the Machna Leviyah, inside the Beis HaMikdash, he has to go out. So that's an essay, and that's before he was over on the lav. And then the Torah says, that he can't go into the Beis HaMikdash when he's tameh. So, and we said in our Mishnah, Habal Mikdash tameh, someone who goes to the Mikdash when he's tameh, and that means even though he's going to be chayiv Malkus, and that's even though there is a essay that if he's in the Beis HaMikdash, he should go out. But since that's a essay that comes before the lav is don't go into the Beis HaMikdash when you're tameh. We say if he goes back into the Beis HaMikdash after when he's tameh, since let's say he became tameh while he was in the Beis HaMikdash and he went out and then he went back into the Beis HaMikdash, even though he was mekayim the essay before, you say so you see that since it's a essay that came before the lav, that's he's going to be mechuyev in the Malkus, even though there's an essay that seems to fix the lav. It doesn't really fix the lav because it happened before he did the lav, but since it's before the lav, he's going to be mechuyev Malkus. So tomorrow, elamai time kahadabe. So l'chayr, this seems to be a good raya to Rabbi Yochanan's original assertion that a lav shekadmu aseh is like an lav. So why was he chayzer on it? Why did he say you don't get Malkus? So karai mishum de kashali oynis, because he had a kasha that you presumably see by oynis, that a lav shekadmu aseh is ain't like enough. Where do you see that? The Tanya. Oynis, someone who forces a woman. So the din is a man who's ma'anis, a woman, he forces himself on a woman. The din is he has to pay her a knas, and he has to marry her. And the din is, Einish, it says in the Brisa, Einish Shagirish, if he married her, like the Torah says he has to do, and then he's Megarish her afterwards, Im Yisrael who Machsevein Aloika. If he's a Yisrael is allowed to remarry, so he remarries her and he doesn't get Makkos. Im Kayan who, Loikavein Machse. But if he's a Kayan that he's not allowed to remarry, a Kayan is not allowed to be Machse Grushasai. So he gets Makkos and he can't be Menatek the Lav by doing the Aseh. So that Gemara, Yisrael who Machsevein Aloika. If he's Yisrael, why do we say if he's Yisrael, he can return her and not get Makkos? Right? This was after he was Ma'anasar, there's a mitzvah right away for him to marry her, and he did that. And then he was Megarish her. And now we're saying if he's a Yisrael, if he marries her a second time, that's gonna be Menatek the Lav. It's gonna fix the Lav, and he's not gonna get Makkos. But according to Rabbi Yochanan's original din, since this essay of marrying her was before he did the Lav of being Megarish her, it shouldn't stop him from getting Makkos. But we're saying that if he's Yisrael and he does remarry her, that he doesn't get Makkos. So it's a raya connected Rabbi Yochanan's original assertion that Lav Shekadmu essay is like in Lav. Amar Ula says, no, I have an answer to even that. That you bring from Einis, there's a separate reason why by Einis he would not get Makkos, he'd be potter from Makkos. Lo yoimer lo sili isha ba'Einis. He says, because we had a question. The Torah says lo sili isha, that the person who is ma'anis, a man who's ma'anis a woman, the Torah says he has to marry her. Lo sili, she should become a wife to him. Why does the Torah have to say that? Let the Torah not say Leisiya b'Yishabah. This will learn it from Motzei Shemra. When there's a second in that if someone marries a woman and after he does Nesuin, he says, she's not a psula and she was over on Gilei Arayis. She was mezavig with someone while she was mukudeshes. And it turns out what he says is not true. The Torah says he has to pay and he gets Makkos. So Zak the Gemara, Uma Motzei Shemra, Shali Asa Maisa. By a Motzei Shemra, all he did was say something about it that wasn't true. Amar Achmad of Eloisi Elisha, the Torah says he has to marry her. Yeah, in this case, he has to remain married to her. Einis. An Einis where he did an actual physical Maisa, like Kol Shekein, is it not certain that he has to marry her? Now, I mean, I don't know the answer to this question, but I don't really see the comparison. You know, if someone hits a woman in the face, there's no din that he has to marry her. Why would you assume that because the Torah says on one type of avla that you do to a woman, the Torah says, and a Motzei Shemra specifically, like we're going to see later on in the Gemara, Motzei Shemra, he's just keeping her as a wife. So why would that we assume that by Einis you say the same thing? But the Gemara takes that as there must be something in common between a Einis and a Motzei Shemra that makes us assume that the same din would apply. So Zak the Gemara, but the Gemara accepts that. So the Gemara says if that's the lima that we would make, we can make such a kal v'chaimer that if a Motzei Shemra, the Torah says Loisi Elisha, then certainly an Einis, Imeni in Lefanov. So therefore, we don't need a pasuk to tell you that he has to marry the woman who is ma'anis. So Tneyu in La'achar. So we'll instead say it's intended. It will tell you that if he married the woman and was megarish her, at that point he has to take her back. So it's limited. The Torah is only telling you this chiddush legabi being machzir grushasai of an Einis. An Einis is not allowed to. He has to marry her, and he's not allowed to be megarish her. If he was megarish her, that's what the Torah is telling you, that he has to return her. So that's shem girish yachzer. So that is already a lav shenitik lase. That's afterwards. That's limited. The Torah is only telling you that he has to do an essay, that if he was ma'anis a woman and married her as he's supposed to, and that was megarish, so he has to return her. So that's a essay that comes after the law. The Torah says you can't be megarish her, and he was Megarish, now he has to take her back because of this pasuk. So that everyone agrees there's a Makkos on that. So it would be Potter. That's a Makkos that would become Potter because it's a nittikla essay. If he does the essay of marrying her, that he'll be off the hook. Correct the Gemara. I can't learn out Motzei Shemra I can learn out Einis from Motzei Shemra because I have a percha. It's not the percha that we said before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said I don't know what the reason is. I could tell you can't learn out Einis from Motzei Shemra because Motzei Shemra you get two things: you get Makkos and you have to pay. Masha Inkin Einis, you only have to pay. There's no Makkos for being honest. The only Einish is that he has to pay her, in addition to the fact that he has to marry her. So l'chayra, you can't learn it out. So if that's the case, l'chayra, we don't have a special limud for the essay at the end of the lav of Einis. So why taka, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it should be mechayiv malchus. Ela lo yomer lo sia leisha b'motzei shemra v'ligma ma'Einis. Gemara says no, so we'll learn out the other way around. The Torah shouldn't have said lo sia leisha by Motzei Shemra, and let's learn out from Einis. So ma'Einis she'ena loikum mishalem amar Rachman lo sia leisha Motzei Shemra lo kol sheken. We'll turn it around. If you're saying a percha, saying you can't learn out, it says lo sia leisha by both Einis and Motzei Shemra. So we just said you can't say that we should have left it out by Einis, and let's leave it out by Motzei Shemra, and we'll learn it for sure to Einis, because the Motzei Shemra has a chumrah that it's both like a misham. So we say the other way around. Let's just say it by Einis and learn it by Motzei Shemra, that it's that it has two Einishim, both like a misham. The lama nemar many in the Motzei Shemra today in the Einis, and then we'll say, since we have an extra pasuk, we'll say it to tell you Einis. Many in the fun of today in lachar, and since the Torah already says lo sia leisha, so it can't be talking about at the beginning that he should marry her. It's coming to tell you after he divorces her that he has to marry her. So therefore, we again would have a separate limud to tell you that it's a lav shenitikla essay, and that's the reason why it would be potter. Again, we have the original reason why we said it was a kal v'chaimer. How could you learn out from Motzei Shemra? How could you learn out Motzei Shemra from Einis? Motzei Shemra is no Maisa, and Einis is a Maisa. Maybe that's the reason why by Einis he's going to be a Chayev Malchus. Elo lo yomer lo sia leisha Motzei Shemra shari yistahi. The Gemara says, why do you have to say Motzei Shemra that he has to marry her? He's already married to her. Motzei Shemra is talking about someone that he's married to, and he's Motzei Shemra. So when the Torah says lo sia leisha, he's already married. Lama nemar remaining in the Motzei Shemra, because the Torah doesn't have to tell you that he has to marry her. Today when you're Einis, give it to my Einis. Remaining in the fun of today in Lachrav. So again, we're back at the same spot. That so good. So then that's the reason why we would learn it out, and that's why Rabbi Yochanan would say that Einis is not a raya. So Rava has this kasha. Ula has a kasha that you shouldn't learn out from Einis to be chayzer. Why don't we say, he asks, what do we say? Instead of saying that it goes to talking about Einis, let's say, let's say that a Motzei Shemra who divorces, right? Till now we've been talking about the Einis. How do we know what we said a din that the Einis pays? He's going to have to, if he's a Yisrael, like we said, if he's Machzir Gushasai, then he's not going to get Malchus. We said, but why is it? It should be, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that's Shver. So we said, no, we need the pasuk. We have this extra pasuk because we don't really need to say by Motzei Shemra that he should be he has to take her as a wife because he's already married her. So he said, oh, so it's coming to tell you that at the end, instead of by Motzei Shemer, by an Oinus, he has to return her. So tomorrow, why don't we say that it's talking about the Saifa of the Motzei Shemra, which is what the pasuk is talking about, instead of saying it's talking about the Saifa of the Einus. You're right. Instead of saying that it's talking about the Saif of the Einus, it could be talking about the Saif of the Motzei Shemra. But also Einus are governed, and then we'll just learn out Einus from Motzei Shemra. So tomorrow, my gamer mine. We already said, we already had a kasha that you can't learn out Oinus from Motzei Shemra. Maybe the reason why Motzei Shemra, he could be, he's not going to be chayiv. He's going to say that essay is going to be menatik the lav in that case, is because it's not there's no ma'isa, so therefore it's more kuladik. So Zok the Gemara. Ella Amar Rava. Rava says, Kol Yomid Ba'achser Ba'amid V'Hachser. V'chenki Aser Rava Amar Rabbi Kol Yomid Ba'amid V'Hachser. We learn it out because the Torah says, Ba'anshu Oisei Meir Kesev and Oslav Yanaira. That's not with the right pasuk. Yeah. No, that's Absula. It says kol yamav. The Torah says he's not allowed to send her out ever. Kol yamav. So when the Torah says kol yamav, that's saying that it's going to extend from now, from the time that he was megarish this woman, that he was ma'anis, he had to marry her. And then he was megarish. We say liyushul kol l'shalcha shal yom. What do you have to say liyushul kol l'shalcha kol yom? Torah says liyushul l'shalcha. He's not allowed to be megarish. If you're saying kol yamav, that means he has the option. As long as he has the option to go bring her back, it's going to be menatik the essay. The essay is going to be menatik the lav, and therefore he's going to be excused from Makkos. So we're coming at it from a different way than we were until now. On the whole Amid, we were trying to do it from what it says, loisiel isha. Instead, we're taking it from the end of the pasuk, where it says yuchal l'shalcha kol yamav. That means as kol yamav ba'amid v'hachzerkai, he has the ability to be menatik the lav by being mekayim the essay of returning. And as we'll see in the Gemara, this means not just that he can very shortly, not just that he can be menatik the lav and be mekayim the essay. The lav that he's not allowed to be megarisha by marrying her, it means he has the option to do so. He could wait for 20 years and then go ahead and do it and be megar and remarry her, and then he'll be excused from the Makkos. How could you say that someone? So we've come to a conclusion, right? That we said that there's a separate pasuk over there by Einus. So the Einus was the reason why Rav had to be Chayzer, had to be Hadarbe. So we can go back, but we slugged it up. We said that Einus is a specific reason. It says, and that's the reason it's a lav and nitik lesay. But generally, when you have an essay that's kaidim the lav, you are going to get malchus, like Rabbi Yechon had originally said. So now the Gemara asks on that. How can you be mechuyev for a lav shekadmu essay? It's not a lav that's similar to a chasima. The Torah says we always find that the Torah said that l'sachshim shar b'disha, and immediately next to that it said the general rules of malchus. So we learn from that all the lavim in order to get malchus have to be daima to the lav chasima. So for the Gemara, a lav shekadmu essay is not similar to chasima. Chasima doesn't have an essay before it. So Amalei Mishum the Katzer Rachmana essay Yisera Migur Gara. He said to him, "What are you saying? You're saying because there's an extra essay. That's the reason why he shouldn't get malchus." Adarabba. If the Torah said you shouldn't do this, and if you do it, you have to do this essay. So you added on an essay that makes it more chamer. It's both a lav and an essay involved in this isser. Amalei Ahulintu. Sorry, I skipped. So we know a lav shenitik is doesn't get Makkos. So according to your theory, that you're saying lav shekadmu essay should be more chai because it has an essay attached to it. Let's say a lav shenitik, let's say also why Adarab, it's more kulik, it should be more chama because it has an essay. He says no. By lav shenitik essay, the essay over there, since it comes after the lav, it's fixing the lav. So then we understand why the Torah says that the essay fixes the lav instead of needing malchus to fix the lav. But lav shekadmu essay, the essay comes before the lav, it's obviously not fixing it, so that is more of a chumrah, and that's the reason why you should get malchus. Okay, so now that was just a diversion back to the original question of Rabbi Yochanan, but now we're continuing with what we had just said before, where we'd explained the reason why, even though Rabbi Yochanan holds, like he said, that a lav shekadmu essay does get malchus, he says by Einstein it's different because the Torah said la'yuchal l'shalcha kol yamav. It says b'kol yamav la'amoid v'hachzakai, that as long as he's alive, he can go whenever he wants and remarry the woman he had divorced, and therefore fix up the lav. But a normal lav shekadmu essay is not like. Correct the Gemara. What about what you said about Ya'inis? L'chayra, this is shver. So this is talking about there's two ways to understand what happens when you have a lav shenitik essay, when you have an essay after a lav. One way of understanding it is bitloi v'loi bitloi, that a person who only will be mechayev on that lav, and he's not going to get malchus until he's mevatel the lav. If he waits 10 years and if he stole something and he's sitting on the thing that he stole, he's not going to get malchus because he could still return it. If he one day destroys the thing that he stole, so now it's no longer available for him to return it, he was mevatel the essay, at that point he gets malchus. So if you say like that, so that's the same thing as here. We're saying that you can be mekayim it whenever it works. So that's why the Torah says, it says, Kol yamav v'amoid v'hachzakai, that he has to liyuchal l'shalcha kol yamav, that he has to wait, and that he can wait and remarry her and therefore avoid the malchus. But if you elamandam kima v'lei kima, there's another mandam who says by lav shenitik essay that after he stole the money and he goes to Bezdin, Bezdin says you stole the money, you have to return it. If he doesn't return it on the spot, he's immediately chayiv to pay that back. And if he doesn't do so, he's going to get malchus right away. So how could you say kol yama b'amay v'hachzakai, that he has the option of waiting his whole life to remarry this woman? According to the Manda Amar, who says kima v'lei kima, as soon as he doesn't remarry her immediately, as soon as he's told the din is you have to remarry, if he doesn't do so, he's going to get malchus right away. Zak the Gemara, midiu time el Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara answers this is not a problem. We're just trying to explain Rabbi Yochanan. Ha'amalei Rabbi Yochanan Tana, Hani, but Rabbi Yochanan, as we're going to see, does hold bitloi v'lei bitloi. He holds that you do have an extended period of time in which to be mekayim the essay to be menatik alav. Ha'amalei Rabbi Yochanan Tani bitloi chayiv v'loi bitloi potter. The Tani Tana come. You learned they had a brisa that said they were saying over that there's a brisa tani bit like chayiv v'lei bit like potter. You have to say that the brisa is saying either that if he was mevatel the essay, then he's chayiv, and if he wasn't mevatel, it's potter, because they had a different. The Tani Tana Kamei Rabbi Yochanan, because they had said kol mitzvahs lois sheyesh ba kumasei, any lois say that has a lav that's menatik it. Kayim essay sheba potter. If he's mekayim the essay, then he's potter. Bittul essay sheba is chayiv. But if he's mevatel the essay, he's chayiv. Amalei, he said to him, this doesn't make any sense. My comment. Kayim potter, when you say if he's mekayim it, he's potter, that's mashma. If he's not mekayim it, it's chayiv. But then you said bittul, he's chayiv. If he's mevatel, it's chayiv. And then it's mashma. If he's not mevatel it, he's potter. But we said, if loy kayim, he's chayiv. So you can't say if he's loy bittel, it's potter, and loy kai, and if he's loy kayim, it's chayiv. Those two are sizer each other. So therefore, so tani bitloy v'loy bitloy. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan says you have to change and say the Bryce is saying that if he was mevatel it, it's only saying one thing. It's saying if he's mevatel it, then he's in mechayiv loy bitloy. But if he wasn't mevatel, he's going to be potter. So that means that as long until he comes and is mevatel the essay, he's in abeyance. It's left hanging, and he's not going to be chayiv. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Aimer kima v'loy kima. Reish Lakish disagrees. He says no. Every lav shenitikal essay, as soon as you're over the lav, and Bezdin says you are over the lav, and you have to be makayim the essay. If he's not makayim the essay, he gets the malchus immediately. Now we've just stated that these are their two shitas, but the Gemara didn't give the reasons why they disagree on this. But my komiflagi, what is the reason for the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish about whether lav shenitikal essay is bitlay v'lei bitlay or kima v'lei kima? Bitlay v'lei bitlay, meaning that he's only going to be mechayev when he's mevatel the lav. According to Rabbi Yochanan and according to Reish Lakish, he's going to be chayev as soon as he's not mekayim the lav. Basra Safik Kamiflgi. Masava Hasra Safik Shema Hasra. Rabbi Yochanan holds Hasra Safik is Shema Hasra. So therefore, he can be over the lav. And the Eidim will tell him, if you are over this lav and you're not Makayim the essay, you're going to be Chayiv. Even though we don't know, it could be 10 years till we find out if he's going to be Mavatal the essay before he's going to be Chayiv. Umasav Asra Safik Loishma Asra. Reish Lakish says no. That kind of Asra would never work. It's Safik. We don't know if he's going to someday be Mavatal lav. But if he's standing in front of you and you tell him, if you're going to be over on this lav, you're going to go to Bezdin, and Bezdin's going to tell you that you have to Mekayim the essay. And if you're not Mekayim the essay, they're going to give you Makkos immediately. When they're both going L'shitasa, Ditma, Shvur Sha'ichel Kika Zayayim, Ba'avar Hayayim V'layachla. Someone made a shvua that he's going to eat this loaf of bread today, and the day passed and he didn't eat it. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish Ami Travayu Einu Leika. They both agree you don't get malchus, but they argue about what the reason is. Rabbi Yochanan Einu Leika. Rabbi Yochanan says like mishum dehavi lav she'em b'maisa, because it's a lav that there's no maisa, right? He made a shvua at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, all he did was sit there. He didn't do anything, so you can't get malchus on that for violating his shvua. He says, no, the reason why you don't get malchus is because at the beginning, when you give him a hasra, when he makes the shvua, you give him a hasra that if he doesn't do it at the end of the day, we don't know if he's going to eat before the end of the day or not. So it's hasra safik. So they're both saying l'shita sam. Reish Lakish is saying Hasra Safik of Loishma Hasra. That's why he says it has to be Kima by Lav Shenitikal essay, because according to Rabbi Yochanan, the Hasra that you're going to make when you're going to Mavatal it at the end is Hasra Safik. Rabbi Yochanan says no, Hasra Safik is a good Hasra, and therefore I can understand that the din is bitlay, that he can just be Mechoy of the Malchus when he eventually ends up being Mavatal that. So I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, the Torah says you shouldn't leave over from your carbon Pesach till the next day. When you leave over the next day, you have to burn. Torah is telling you to give you an essay after life. So Rabbi Yehuda says it's lav shenitik essay. So Rabbi Yochanan dai kachi. The reason why the Torah said, because it's only because it's lav shenitik essay. Alai ba'akasa laika, you would be mechuyev for nicer. Alma hasra safik shema hasra. But you see that hasra safik is a shema hasra, because when you give him first the hasra, that if you leave it over, you don't know if he's going to leave it over later or not. So you can't. It's always going to be hasra safik. So from the fact that the Torah has to say because it's a lav shenitik essay, vayistai. So the Brisa says it's a lav shenitik essay. You see that without the lav shenitik essay, you would be chayiv. So you see, Hasra Safik will be a Shema Hasra. Rishlak is Dai Kachi. Time to Kasav. The only reason is because the Pasuk told you, Leba Kasav like Alma Lav Shem B'Maisa like Lav. There's also a Lav Shem B'Maisa. So he says that it doesn't prove me anything about Hasra Safik. What it proves me about is that a Lav Shem B'Maisa is like Lav. What does Reish Lakish do with the fact that it's Asra Safek? How could he say they would have been chayiv if not for the fact that it's a lav shein b'maisa, but it's also Asra Safek, and you hold Asra Safek is lo yishum Hasra. So that although this Tana Rabbi Yehuda seems to say Hasra Safek is Shema Asra, there's another Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya Hacha Hikazeh b'chazav Hikazeh. If someone hit two people, he's not sure which is his father. He hit one, then he hit the other one. Kilo zeh b'chazav kilo zeh. He gave a klal to one and he gave a klal to the other. He doesn't know which one is his father. Or Hikashneim b'vasachas, like Kilo shneim b'vasachas. So he did both of them at the same time. Chayiv. He's going to be chayiv according to the Tanakama, because they hold both the Hasra Safek is Shema, the Hasra Safek is Shema Hasra. Only if he did them both at the same time is he chayiv. But if it's zeh, you're potter, because then it's a Hasra Safek. Whichever one you gave that Hasra to, as you give each one Hasra, you don't know whether that person is going to turn out to be the father, so it's a Safek. So you see, there's a sheet of Rabbi Yehuda that holds Hasra Safek is Shema Hasra. So even though in that first brisa he also was saying Hasra Safek is Lo Shema Hasra, but over here is Shema Hasra. Over here we see he holds Lo Shema Hasra, and therefore I say that first brisa is only going to tell you the din of lav shein b'maiser. Yechnami avade lav shein b'maiser who, and what does Rabbi Yochanan do with the Reish Lakish's tam? Savaki adam Rav Yidi am Barav and Rav Amnon Rav Yitzchak Rav Yechon Rav Yehuda Aimim Mishum Rav Yisegli Kol Loisel Sheshabetayr lav sheish b'maiser loiken alav lav shein b'maiser loiken alav chutz ben anishba umeimer v'amakal. We have a brisa that says directly b'shem Rav Yehuda that a lav shein b'maiser is not like an alav, even though the mashmoisa that earlier brisa was not like that. The only exceptions are a nishba, someone who makes a specific type of shvua, and a meimer. What was a meimer? Which is someone who does tmura. He switches to one animal for a different animal, which is also just saying something. It's not a ma'isa v'amakal, and someone makes who's makal his father that gets misa. Ma'as chaveru b'shem. When someone uses the Shem Hashem to be Makal, someone who also gets Makkos. But in any case, other than those, Lav Shem Ma'aseh ain't like. So Rabbi Yehuda, either Rabbi Shimon Lakish Trei Tanoi Aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Shimon Lakish, you could say it's two Tanoi Aliba de Rabbi Yehuda, even though Rabbi Yehuda seems to be serious himself, according to both Shitas. Either Rabbi Yochanan Lekasha Hadi Dei Hadi Rabbi. One is his, and one is his Rabbi. In the second brisa that we said B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda, it was that Rabbi Yehuda was saying B'Shem someone else. So you don't even have to say that it's two shitas according to Rabbi Yehuda. You could just say that it's he's saying over b'shem his Rabbi. Okay, we'll stop over here. Shkayach, I just wanted to get to the end of that.